Welcome back to You Can't Make This Shit Up. I'm Kellen. That right there is David. And today we're actually talking about something in Florida. Isn't that a nice change of pace? In fact, we're talking about unions here in Florida because we can't be too adventurous. Our favorite, David and I, it's like our favorite thing. We've been talking about this so much this year, and we have had so many strikes. Teacher unions, railroads, the UAW, the Writers Guild of America, the actors, everything under the sun has gone on strike this year. And it seems a lot of Republicans here in Florida have gotten sick of it. So they passed legislation, which we covered previously on the show, that made it harder to unionize. And now we see the fruits of that labor, or rather, the non-unionized labor. David, what's going on?
Well played. Well played. Hey, don't forget the Amazon workers and the Starbucks workers. You know, they've
I
gone
can't
on strike.
remember every worker that went on strike, David.
So, the Florida's largest teachers union, the United Teachers of Dade, Dade County, UTD, risk decertification for not meeting the 60% member dues payment threshold required by a new state law, HB 256. UTD must now show that 30% of members support unionization to hold a recertification vote. The law, seen as anti union, exempts first responder unions and makes dues payment harder. UTD's contract remains effective during this process. Here we go. Let's go here. So, House Bill 256 signed into law last legislative session by Governor Ron DeSantis was called onerous and anti-union by the union president, Ms. Hernandez Matz, who I believe was the running mate to Charlie Crist when they ran against Governor Ron DeSantis in last year's election. Carla Hernandez Matz, she's the union president. And the new law increases the proportion of dues paying members that are required in order for a union to maintain its certification while also making it harder for workers to pay those dues. That is messed up. And it's by law, through law, that Ron DeSantis and his Republican servants in the legislature are union busting. Now, in regards to Hernandez Matz and UTD, knowing that the law was in effect, I'm not too sure what efforts were made to begin a campaign to let the union members know that their union is at stake of being decertified and therefore the union being disbanded. However, this is a little bit embarrassing, and it makes you question, well, is there a space for, teachers unions in Florida? Are the teachers themselves really interested in protecting themselves through union organization? Kelly?
Historically, going back to the time of the Pinkertons, all that fun practice, you see why labor unions, love them, hate them, however, still do matter. David's out here plugging our merch. What a man. What a real good influencer you are. But you see that historically, that in absence of unions, companies will rip people off because there's always some sucker who will take any deal, even if the deal sucks. And that's a general concern. Of course, unions can get too much power and they can get corrupt. But here's the thing. You can restrict them to an extent, but if the largest teachers union in the state can't meet the requirements, I struggle to think how many smaller ones will be able to meet the requirements. And I'm guessing very, very few. And in all honesty, I think the Florida is honestly pretty late to the punch. Why have we seen so many strikes this year compared to other years? Well, the answer is the Republicans' favorite word, inflation. When you experience inflation, workers were paid at a set amount that the year. That was not adjusted for inflation, but the products being sold were. So your gross income for the company is adjusted to inflation, but their input, their labor is not. So your real income has gone down and the company's real profits have gone up. So, because of how slow they will be, how sticky prices can be, they were not these strikes happened because their real income was not being adjusted for inflation. That's why everybody this year went on strike as opposed to any other year. They wanted their real income back. They wanted their real full income back. And I think a lot of the big strikes have already happened. There's still probably a couple more to come. But in all honesty, Florida is a little bit late to the punch. All they're really doing is ensuring that people won't be able to unionize next time.
Right. And Florida is a right to work state. And so the unions are already at a disadvantage in recruitment and increasing their memberships. We did have the UAW, go on strike. We had, I believe it was UPS drivers, FedEx drivers who
Yes.
threatened to go on strike. So people are realizing their power in being in the union. In Florida, I think in Florida, unions go to kind of die in a way. And
Yeah.
when you have super majorities in the legislature, of conservatives who are not union friendly, and a governor who is definitely not union friendly, who believes that unions use their members' dues to promote anti-American ideals, it's going to be difficult. And getting that message through to your membership that they need to cooperate, they need to get involved, they need to, excuse me, advocate for themselves is not an easy task. It's definitely not an easy task. And unions being the basis for a lot of liberal and democratic causes, this will cripple their effectiveness to provide the resources to the Democrats, to candidates who run under the Democratic affiliation. It's going to make it that much harder and dry up those resources. And again, effectively helping conservatives, Republicans win office. It's a ripple effect, and we'll keep an eye on what's happening with the UTD. However, well played, DeSantis. You make sure that the teachers unions are affected by this law and not the first responders. Well played, and of course they're going to throw their support behind you. Um,
And
so
and,
so much
and I'm
politics
very
behind it.
yeah, power politics, trying to make sure that the Democrats can't muster as much of a challenge, make sure they're underfunded. It's a smart strategy. But I really do feel for the teachers in this state because as much as, DeSantis will like to go to the Republican debates and brag that he increased his teachers' pay. First off, I heard multiple teachers mention this to me, mostly my senior year of high school when I was there, that they were all getting fed up. Like they wanted to jump ship, get out of this state because they would get, you'd have a governor who would gloat about how much more teachers are paid, but the raise would be lower than the natural rate of inflation. Oh my gosh, you got a 2% raise this year. Inflation was 13. Take that. You win, right? You win. That's the mentality. It's like those greedy teachers get paid less every single year, want to get
Yes,
paid more. How greedy of them.
and
Putting
it's not
themselves
easy.
putting themselves above our children, you know.
And
It's
it's
like,
not easy being a teacher.
no, and a lot of teachers have children of their own that they're trying to provide for. And real income, they make less every single year in this state because the cost of living adjustment is below the natural rate of inflation. Like
Right.
it's assuming rock bottom inflation rates, which not only are extremely rare, but they're often not even desirable. It's not even
Right.
desirable to go below 2% inflation. It's not desirable to do that. So it's such a mess. And so in the sense, even though many that I knew, keep in mind, I don't live in Orange County, I live in a more conservative county of
Right.
Brevard. Even though a lot of them really don't like unions, they don't have a better option. Ultimately, is what they find is that they don't have a better option, even if they don't like their union.
Mhm.
And then now it's just like, what option do you have other than to leave? Pick a different career path. That's your option now. And
And let me run with that. Here's some conspiracy theory stuff. You know,
ooh,
if
oh,
folks, that was kind of weird. Something fell. Something happened. Do I have a ghost here? Uh-oh.
it might have been the background noise here
Oh,
in
okay.
my place.
Okay. But conspiracy theory here, going with what you just said, the people who want to teach are discouraged because they see the pay is crap, the protection is crap. And is this a larger issue for the conservatives to further deconstruct public education
I'll give
and
you.
move those dollars to privatization of public education?
It may,
And
it may not. I mean, David and I, we don't have very much insider information. We know some candidates, but we don't know. We're not intimately involved with that process. We're not intimately familiar with the people behind bills like this, so we can't know for certain either way. Um, it affects unions outside of just the teachers union.
sure.
Um, and it may just be it may just come down to Democrat dollars. It might be that simple, but it may be further that you know they want to discourage public education because they set up this private school voucher program which they parade
Right.
around. If there's one part of his record that DeSantis loves to throw around out there, it's his school voucher system, and it may or may not be a scheme to encourage that, but it's definitely something to think about whether it ends up being the truth or not.
Right. I can see a logical trail here of, people being discouraged to enter the teaching field here in Florida, people leaving the teaching field here in Florida. And like you just mentioned, the school voucher, opening it up to everyone, not just a certain demographic, but to everyone to use those tax dollars is a further erosion. That's the word I'm looking for. Erosion, in my view, of public education. And this has been going since Jeb Bush was, I'm sorry, Jeb Bush was governor of Florida and championed, charter schools and school vouchers and things like that. And I've always said that Florida is the test kitchen for conservative politics. Um, this is I'm just looking at the long game here, and I see this as part of the long game. This is just me
Yeah,
thinking out loud.
yeah, I get that a lot. I don't think that the voucher system we have right now is good enough to replace public schooling. Maybe I think a lot of those people, a lot of the legislature thinks that it is, but I don't think it is. Not only as you mentioned before, it's open to everybody, including millionaires, who obviously are too
Right.
poor to afford their children. They wipe their eyes with ones instead of fives. if they don't get their voucher. Um, so they already have that money, which isn't properly like allocated to actually replace public schools, because public schools are necessary for social mobility. That's the ultimate. I mean, aside from just creating informed citizens, social mobility, those are the two primary functions of public schooling, is why we have it in the first place. It's so that just because you're born in a crappy situation doesn't mean you have no route out of it. Um, but I don't think that's ringing true. I think when you because even though there are lots of private schools, they don't have the full capacity. Like if all of our public schools were to go dark, the capacity would not be there, especially in places like here in Orange County. The capacity would not be there.
And see, and this is what the private schools are doing, is that they'll raise their tuition.
Supply. Yes, they have a
Mhm.
lower supply, so higher demand,
Right.
prices go up.
Even though they'll get that $8,000 voucher, they'll add another $8,000 to the tuition. So you'll get the wealthier families to send their kids to a private school with the assistance of a voucher and still be able to pay the additional tuition fee that was tacked on after the school voucher system
Yeah.
change. However, those who have the voucher but cannot afford the additional fee that was tacked on to the tuition will still remain in the public school. So you'll still
Yeah.
have the haves leaving the public school system and the have nots who will be basically brown and black and poor stay in the system that's not being supported.
Yeah. It's rough, and ultimately, when this is the truth. A lot of government subsidy business, it's like a Black Friday sale where it's 50% off, but they doubled the price the day before.
Bingo.
Where it's like it's cheaper, but it's not cheaper. It's the same price.
Same price.
It's same price, and a lot of and like you said, a lot of schools now are just gonna conveniently raise their cost by $8,000.
Right.
That's the as great as markets are, as great as capitalism is, sometimes you can't always trust them to provide utilities,
And
public services, because they can't. Markets can't provide public services by their very nature. They have to seek profit. They don't do anything from the goodness of their hearts.
right.
It's
That's right.
sometimes it's not in their best interest. For example, like if they were to provide our water, for example, it may not be in their best interest to make sure that the water is safe, that it has a tiny bit of fluoride to help our teeth. It's probably in their interest to not put fluoride and to cut costs. It's probably in their best interest to not maintain the pipes as well as they can. It's probably in their best interest to prioritize the water quality in some areas over the quality of other areas. Because what's in the best interest of the public and what's in the best interest of a business can be at odds. And I think that's the general risk you run. I mean, you risk things with a public school system too. I
Mhm.
mean, you make choices and trade offs in systems like this. And I think, and that's the trade off you make, that you make school less accessible. You make it so that fewer people can go to a functioning school. And also that because schools are for profit, they can pull pricing shenanigans if they want.
Indeed. Indeed.
In conclusion, what do you think, David?
Not a big fan of House Bill 256. Not a fan of the school voucher system. Um, Again, I'm concerned. There's so much that I can do from my point of view. I hope the best for President Carla Hernandez Mats and UTD, and hopefully we'll see that they will be recertified. However, it's a cautionary tale for the rest of the unions here in Florida, and we'll be keeping an eye on this.
Yeah. Make sure to communicate to your members. Unions are at stake, and ultimately in the business environment we're in, your pay is at stake. Your real income is at stake. Um, That like button is also at stake, by the way, so you should hit it.
Right.
In conclusion, as well, if we are going this more privatized route to things, way more has to be done. Like, because we ended up talking about schools. You ultimately, both systems have their advantages and disadvantages, but we are not properly set up for private schools as much as the Florida GOP likes to say that we are. Right now, there's not regulations in place to keep relentless price hiking out, hidden fees out, things like that. There's too many, and not to mention just plain capacity problems. We're not there yet. So I'm disappointed that we're just hell bent on stopping our teachers from earning a fair pay, and we're going to pay them less every single year and brag that we're totally paying them more. It's disappointing. But again, like I mentioned about the like button, it would make me less disappointed if you hit it, and maybe if you subscribe. If we get enough subscribers, I can start posting stuff on the community, and it would be really fun. Could do all kinds of polls and other exciting things. So definitely, please subscribe and share. We want to grow our community. We want to create conversations. We appreciate every single comment we get. Yeah, and have a great day, everybody.
Thank
And
you.
we are